Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. I'm your host, W.J. Sheehan. Hello, everybody, and once again, may I welcome you to this, our show of shows. My name is W.J. Sheehan, author of the series Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters. And if you're unaware of it, it's available at Amazon in paperback, ebook, and in the KDP lending library. I also have volumes 3, 4, 5, and 6 in audiobook format at Audible, iTunes, and Amazon as well, so do partake of that. And I'm also proud to say that I have yet another party who is interested in reading my stories to their scout troop. Kev, come on in here for a minute.
Yeah.
You're here, right? So I had another scout leader contact me. And he was telling me that over the weekend he was going to read some creepy Bigfoot encounters to his troop.
Well, hopefully it's not a troop of brownies.
Yeah. Well, he did say Boy Scouts.
Okay, all right.
But, you know, these days, I think there are girls in the Boy Scouts. Go figure.
I don't even know.
Yeah, and that... with that school teacher. You remember the school teacher?
Oh, I do. Yeah.
I mean, that is awesome. For you folks who are new to the broadcast, I actually had a school teacher tell me that he was reading my Bigfoot account books to his students because he was just scratching and clawing, finding something that they would take interest in and read. Well, they loved the stuff, and he had them put in his school library. So if you got some chillin' out there that aren't reading, maybe you should buy some Bigfoot books by WJ, and you might have a future English teacher on your hands.
There you go. Awesome.
Now, Kev, I know you're locked and loaded today with something bizarre in the land of cryptids, and maybe I'll just hand it over to you and we'll get down to it.
All right. Well, I am definitely ready to go.
Okay, bro.
And, you know, we're going to be talking about the Mapinguari.
The what?
Exactly. Mapinguari. And, you know, of course, we all know our beloved Bigfoot hairy man and Sasquatch, his brother. And then, you know, we talk about the Yeti in Asia. Last week we were in Russia with the Yeti, for example. But the Mapinguari basically is the creature that terrorizes the Amazon rainforest in South America.
Oh, my God. Terrorize. Emphasis on terror.
Oh, well, wait till you hear the description of this beast.
Oh, my God.
It seems that nearly every Indian tribe in this part of the world, mostly around Brazil in the Amazon rainforest, has a different word for this creature. And the words usually translate into something along the lines of one of two things. The first being the roaring animal or the fetid animal. And fetid, of course, is extremely unpleasant smelling.
Oh, my goodness. So here we go again right off the bat. The stink.
Right off the bat with the bad smell.
Wow.
You know, we see that a lot in Bigfoot encounters.
Yeah, I mean, over and over again, people talk about the stink. Even if they don't see something, they say, I smelled it.
Exactly.
Wow.
And now what's wild is when you get into the descriptions of this beast, they vary wildly. So, you know, they talk about it as having the body of a giant bear. It does walk upright. You know, you can see it on all fours, but you definitely see it walking upright.
Right.
But here we get a little weird, and then it gets weirder. So it has backward turned clawed feet. So kind of the rear feet face the other way.
Wow.
And we've heard that a little bit with Dogman in the past, right? Where some people say his feet face the other way.
Yeah, it's really odd.
Yeah, super weird. The face, you know, looks like an ape or even human-like, so similar to Bigfoot, right?
Yeah.
And I guess related to the smell, when people see it, they usually see a large cloud of flying bugs following it.
Wow. Yeah.
So, like kind of like Pigpen from Peanuts.
Is he also carrying a beat up blankie?
He's a little stinky, apparently.
Yeah.
And then, so now it gets wild. So sometimes they talk about it as having two eyes, like a traditional Bigfoot. But in many accounts, they talk about it like a cyclops with one single giant eye in the middle of its forehead.
Holy cow.
Exactly.
And where are these accounts coming from? I guess native people or Amazonian tribal people?
Mostly native folks down there, tribal people, but they have had, different organized groups from North America go down there and search. And we'll talk about one of these folks that's classically educated up here in North America that spends a lot of time down there investigating this creature.
Interesting. And not too far from the rainforest is a gigantic piece of real estate. But not too far from the perimeters of that, you have sugarcane fields and other type of farming and agriculture going on. So, I wonder if any of those people outside of the rainforest proper are encountering.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that's one of the problems, right, with the rainforest today, threatening the rainforest, is the burning of the rainforest, where people are, trying to burn out more land to farm.
Yeah.
And also for grazing their cattle.
Absolutely.
And of course, it's destroying, this land that's likely very critical to all humankind's existence on the globe.
Yeah, and like everywhere else, if you start infringing on their domain, the chance of encounters is going to be exponentially higher. Maybe they get ticked off and they want to come out and encounter you at that point in time,
Exactly. So, and we're going to get into the personality of this beast, but, you thought the cyclops-like eye was strange. Get this, because I read this in like 10 different locations. And the first time I read it, I thought it was a typo, like in the translation. Mm-hmm. But they mention that many of the versions of the descriptions of this beast describe it as having a large mouth in the middle of the monster's stomach. And many of the accounts say that it uses this mouth to consume humans unfortunate enough to cross its path.
Wow, that is like totally off the charts.
So it's got like a little mouth in its face, like we have, and then it has this giant mouth in the middle of its stomach, in the middle of its abdomen.
Oh my God! It sounds like a squid.
Yeah. But I mean, can you imagine seeing this 7-foot-tall, stinky thing that roars like thunder, has a cyclops-like eye, and then has this huge mouth in the middle of its abdomen?
That's like totally ridiculous.
I'd be dead just seeing it.
How do you spell this, Kev? The name again?
Yeah, so it's Mapinguari. So it's Mapinguari.
Wow. Very freaking.
I think I'm pronouncing it correctly.
Yeah, I mean, you're close enough. Somebody will probably correct us anyway. You know how that goes.
That's good. Now, some of the legends about the beast say that it has supernatural powers, and classic stories, of the native people describe it as a werewolf-like Indian shaman who discovered the secret of immortality, but paid for it by being transformed into this horrible monster.
Jeez.
So, that's kind of the legend of the beast.
Yeah, and that's got to come out of the indigenous rainforest people,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow.
And then, on the other accounts, all accounts agree that it's about 7 feet tall. It looks human-like when it stands on 2 legs, and the smell that it gives off can be a disabling smell. So it's so bad that, it basically can disable you.
Right. Yeah.
And then it has thick, matted, red to black fur, so ranging between red and black, so it sounds a little bit like Bigfoot.
Right.
And then they talk about it as being covered under its fur in some kind of hard exoskeleton that makes it very difficult to penetrate with arrows or bullets. So,
Wow.
I didn't see any other details about this, but, it could just be that they're not using enough, caliber.
Yeah. I don't think a blowgun's going to work at the Mapinguari. Hey, something that's weird, though? Obviously, if they're saying this centrally located mouth or port in its body eats people who are unfortunate enough to cross paths with it, are they saying that, people down there have been eaten by this thing?
Well, I mean, that's what they say here is that it's very aggressive. It doesn't flee human contact, and it aggressively hunts down humans.
Wow.
So it basically, turns the table on hunted and hunter.
Wow. That is like totally bizarre.
Yeah.
Sounds like some type of freaking alien being, something that's not supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So one of the folks that writes about the encounters is this gentleman, David Oren, and he's a Harvard and Yale trained biologist and ornithologist. And he thinks the fabled monster is not only real, but actually a living species of a giant ground sloth that was believed to be extinct for about 8,000 years.
Wow, that's interesting. And it walked on its hind legs?
Exactly.
But,
can be on all fours, but can stand up on its hind legs and walk around on its hind legs.
I don't know about you, but my idea of a sloth is like a sluggard, slow-mo, like nothing. How could they aggressively pursue a human? Could you imagine? That would be like the old Mummy movie. You remember when the guy would go in the tomb and that weirdo would blow some smoke over the mummy, and next thing you know, it was like walking around at about, 10 feet per hour, and the guy couldn't get away from it?
Yeah.
Just the typical monster movie, where everybody's saying, run away, and they just stand there. And the mummy would put its fingers around the neck, next thing you saw was, ah! I mean, a sloth. How's a sloth going to attack anybody?
I don't know how fast this thing is,
Yeah.
What kind of creature it is. But first of all, the fact that it could be possible for something to have believed to have become extinct, but yet still be alive in the rainforest, of course, right? I mean, I'm sure there are creatures alive in the Amazon rainforest that we think are extinct.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
We often talk about the dense forests, right, in North America where people go to see Bigfoot, and they run into the Devil's Club plant that I talked about in Alaska. Mm-hmm. I mean, here in the Amazon, you have every single step you take can kill you between the snakes, the spiders, the bugs,
Yeah.
Holy cow. Like a lot of folks roaming around in there on any given day.
No, you take your life in your hands, even if you know what you're doing going in there.
Right.
I mean, there's stuff in there that could, like you said, could kill you in a heartbeat, and there's nowhere to get help.
Yep.
Wow.
So Oren, who writes about and researches this beast, a lot of the results, a lot of his findings come from accounts that people tell him, relay to him. So one of these accounts comes from someone named Giovaldo Caritiana. And this is a 27-year-old Indian from the region. He says that there's no doubt that the Mapinguari is real. He claims to have seen one about 3 years ago as he was hunting in the jungle near an area that the tribe calls the Cave of the Mapinguari, right? And he says it was coming toward the village and making this extremely loud howl. Remember in the description, they talked about it as howling like thunder.
Wow.
And he said it stopped when it got near him, and that's when this bad smell came upon him and actually made him extremely dizzy, and he fainted. And when he woke up, the Mapinguari was gone.
Wow. It's almost like a disabling scent of some kind, you know?
Right.
Really strange.
And then they talked to Caratiana's father, Lucas, and he confirmed the account. And he said that when his son took him back there to the site to show him what happened, he saw a cleared pathway through the rainforest where the creature had arrived and departed. And he said it looked as if a boulder had rolled through and knocked down all of the trees and vines.
Wow. That's really strange.
Very, very strange, right?
Yeah. And, again, here we have these people. I mean, he's got no axe to grind. Or maybe he does have an axe that he grinds, but he's not making any money off of it. And
no, not that we know of.
Yeah, to just come up with this tale. Could it happen? Sure. But we're kind of left at the mercy of the person telling the story. To validate it, but it's interesting that this other researcher is making a connection between a potentially extinct giant animal.
And there's a website. It's interesting. I wouldn't guess this, right? Like I looked around and read tons of information about this Mapinguari beast, but several of the accounts, including this next one, are on this site related to cruises through the rainforest, which I've never seen before.
Yeah.
But tons of details there about this beast and different encounters. So I did want to give a little shout out to Rainforest Cruises.
Okay.
So this next account comes from a 70-year-old who says that he saw the Mapinguari 20 years ago, I guess when he was 50, after a 45-day canoe ride from the nearest village. So he went into the river, into the forest for 45 days on a canoe. He says, I was working by the river when I heard a scream, a horrible scream. Suddenly, something looking like a man came out of the forest, all covered in hair. He was walking on two legs, and thank God he did not come toward us. I will always remember that day.
Wow. I mean, 45 days in a canoe.
Well, yeah, it's a big river down there.
Yeah, but I mean, he's like, if he was in nowhere when he started, where did he end?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then Oren says that he has, although he doesn't have any footage of the beast itself, he has taken video footage of the clawed trees and taped or recorded what he believes to be the creature's minute-long thunderous howls.
Jeez.
So, and then he's also made molds, castings, of the very large footprints with the backward-facing claws.
Very weird. Are there any of these howl recordings available or no?
I couldn't find any, but that's not to say they're not out there. I'll keep looking, and I'll put any of them up on our website, BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com. Yeah. I'll also put some of these images. There's a lot of like artist images of the beast, and they're spectacular, and terrifying.
Wow. And by the way, folks, Kevin goes to a lot of trouble putting together these pieces for our Cryptids in the News and Other Oddities segment, and he's plugging a lot of stuff into our website. So when you have time, go over there, BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com, and they're attached to various episodes that we've done, correct, Kev?
Yep. Right below each episode, I put in a couple of images or links to videos and stuff like that we've talked about on the episodes.
Yeah, awesome job. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, so super cool. I encourage folks, especially our listeners out there, if you know anything about this Mapinguari, drop us a note again on the contact section of BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com. This was new to me. I've been reading about it for a few weeks. A lot of information on it out there, and Super cool, especially when you start to see some of the images of this creature. It's more frightening than any of the other beasts I've talked about.
Yeah, I mean, you can only imagine how horrific it would be to be in some type of little primitive jungle encampment and to be attacked by virtually anything, where maybe your only defense is perhaps a knife, a bow and arrow, of some type. And not to take it away from them, the bows and arrows that these indigenous people have been using for hundreds, if not thousands of years, are deadly in their hands. It's not like they can't kill something.
Yeah.
But
no doubt about it.
Yeah, they're very proficient with the weapons they have,
Yep.
Wow, that's incredible. Wow. Well, Kev, again, great job bringing that to the front page of our show. And I'm going to turn the page here for a minute. I got something to share with you and the listeners that's going to rattle your cage for sure. And when people say, where is the evidence? Well, the evidence is all around us as to the existence of Bigfoot. It's a question of whether you believe it or not. And if you take advantage of everything that's being brought out relative to the finding of evidence. And this is another such account. I actually think it's pretty horrific, and it was told by Lyle McGuire, who was out on a weekend hike with his cousin, a fellow named Les Perkins, in Oregon. And this is what the two guys came upon when they were out on the hike. Lyle said, my cousin Les and I had planned a weekend hike on September 1st, 2004. We had selected the Trapper Lake via Cherry Creek Trail as the site for this weekend, and it happened to be a trail which we hadn't hiked in the past. I would say that the two of us hike at least 15 to 20 weekends out of the year, with some being multi-day hikes and others being day hikes. Our plan was that this would be a weekender. This trail was rated as being difficult, as well as being about 12 miles out and back. And our plan was to take it to its limits and continue onward to do a little exploring in the process. Kev, excuse me, the first thing that jumps out of me, and I'm going to continue, when we say who sees a Bigfoot, if you follow the MO of these two fellas, they're hiking basically half the weekends of the year for a day or two or maybe more at a time. On this particular hike, they're going out 12 miles into Timbuktu. And, in all of the time they spend hiking, suddenly they run across something we're going to hear about. So it's no accident for these guys. I mean, they're really in the thick of it.
No doubt about it. I'm glad you mentioned it. I was going to interrupt you and say, look at this, Bill. Like 15 to 20 weekends a year, you're pretty much, for all intents and purposes, you're hiking every single weekend that you could. Right, because at some point you got to do some chores around the house, or you have a job.
Yeah, and I mean this is Kev, you hike a lot. How long in some rigorous country would it take you to go 12 miles?
Oh, well, it varies tremendously, right? I mean, yeah. I've done some hikes that were like a mile long and took 2 hours. If they're straight up.
Yeah.
Or they have portions that are straight up.
Well, and I'm sure these guys were breaking out. Let's continue here.
Yeah, and that's beautiful country there in Oregon.
I'm sure. He said it was Saturday morning when we began, and the hike in was just about what we had expected. The trail was well overgrown, and here and there were trees which had fallen across the trail. We had crossed creeks and meadows and had arrived at the trail's formal end, being somewhat of a crossover trail by both Sky and Trapper Lakes. I should also mention that we were near Klamath Falls. We had found a nice clearing by Trapper Lake in which to pitch our tent for the night, and there we remained until the following day. In the morning, having risen early, we figured we had a good 2 or 3 hours that we could kill before we started to head back out. So we commenced to hiking up and around a large hill that was located behind Trapper Lake that looked somewhat interesting. This hill was sporadically patched with many clusters of tall, thin pines, with the soil in between these patches being predominantly tan in coloration. Having circumnavigated the lake and made our way up and around the back of this hill, we saw something metallic glistening in the sunlight in the edge of the trees below us. So we went down to take a look. Going down the slope, we momentarily had lost sight of what we had seen, but we knew we were heading in the right direction. As we emerged from the trees to a point where we could now see, we walked up upon the remains of a mangled aluminum backpack frame, a small mountain tent which was torn apart and thrown in the trees, a New York baseball cap, and a zip-up hoodie. Neither the hoodie nor the cap were marred in any way, and neither of them was stained in blood. Initially, it appeared to us that some type of attack had occurred here, with the question being who the victim was and what or whom had done the attacking. At this point in time, I must also tell you that there had been quite a storm that ran through here a few weeks earlier, a fact that I mentioned because we had actually delayed our coming here because of it. So like any normal human beings would do under such circumstances, we began to look around in the hope of finding a body. We had spent the better part of an hour searching high and low and found nothing, at which point we made our way back to the initial discovery site. As we scoured the area further, Les had called to me and said, "Hey, you better come over here." Well, I went over, and Les pointed at the ground. I was now looking at a large, dried footprint in the ground, evidently having been made during the previous storm. Les looked at me, and I at him, as he said to me, "That's from a Sasquatch, brother. Whoever owned that backpack was done in by a Squatch." Frankly, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. The thought of somebody having been attacked and carried away from where we were standing was quite disturbing, to say the least. With no identification being present and nothing other than the items which I described to you, we gathered up what we could and made our way out. I will tell you flat out that the two of us were more than a bit edgy as we made our way out of there. I kept having the uneasy feeling that we were either being followed or watched the entire time, and yet neither of us saw or heard anything. When we had made it back to the truck later that afternoon, our first order of business was to take care of what we had found and report what we had seen to the police, which we did. Since that day, I have never been fully able to relax and enjoy a hike as I used to, and I never camp overnight in these woods or any woods at all. Pretty crazy, huh?
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty rural place. I was looking it up while you were giving the account because I thought I had been to Klamath Falls, but I've been to Klamath, Oregon, which, interestingly enough, that's out. Klamath is out near the coast where, I've spent a lot of time on the Oregon coast, relatively speaking, hiking around. Mm-hmm. But Klamath Falls is a little more inland, closer to Crater Lake.
Okay.
But pretty rural place.
Yeah, I mean, And in the account, he talks about just a little bit of the types of obstacles they came across working their way in. So really the account kind of answered my question that I asked you about how long would it take you to go 12 miles. And, I mean, these guys were coming across felled trees, overgrown trails, crossing a creek, whatever.
No, and the trees out there generally are, these big old growth forests that are like nothing like you've seen up in where you live, Bill. I mean, these trees, they're gigantic.
Yeah.
And then, half of them have fallen down and you got to climb over them, go around them,
yeah, it's
etc.
It's really
it's
a
beautiful.
zigzag.
Some of the prettiest forests I've ever hiked in are in Oregon.
Wow. So it's really like a zigzag. It's like walking through a pile of pickup sticks.
Exactly. And then there's elevation. This is a place that has some elevation around it. And you know how it is. You look at a hill or a small mountain from the distance and you're like, oh, that's not too bad until you're on it, and it's like, geez, this is straight up,
Yeah.
I mean, I always tell, my bride and I do a lot of hiking, as you know, and it's kind of a lot of the stuff we have to put our hands down with our feet. You're going up, so you're actually using your hands and your feet at the same time, and that's slow going, because you're exhausted.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you say that because two things occur to me relative to Bigfoot climbing and moving through the country. First of all, stuff that would make us have to use hands and feet, they can walk with ease. And it's only when they really get into basically a vertical situation that they go to hands and feet when climbing up a steep terrain.
Oh, yeah, and everyone talks about it. Almost every account talks about how much distance the Bigfoot is able to cover compared to the humans that are trying to retrace their footsteps.
Yeah, it's very bizarre. I mean, I had that one guy. You remember I was doing that account about the fly fisherman in Vermont?
Mm-hmm.
You remember that one?
Yeah.
Where the guy was very graphic with his detail about the height of the bank on this river that the thing had gone up with no handholds.
Right.
I mean, that is like, what did he, I think I recall him saying, like, the thing must have taken, like, vertical steps of, like, 6 feet with no handholds.
Oh, and I mean, the one I always think about, Bill, is I think it was our first podcast where I did the account with the video evidence of the Bigfoot sighting in Utah.
Yeah, Provo, Utah.
Provo, Utah, where, the folks could see it on the ridge and took the videotape of it, which they shared. And then when they climbed up there, they were like, oh, my goodness, this is like straight up, and of course it was in like 3 feet of snow, as I recall as well.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, everything looks, it's the same old story. When you get up on a location, it's like looking at Mount Everest from afar, and then when you're at one of the base camps and you look up, it's like, we're going to climb this?
Yeah, what are we doing?
Yeah. maybe we should rethink our motivation.
Exactly.
Why don't we just go down to Dunkin' Donuts and chill?
Let's talk about it.
Wow, that's freaking unbelievable.
Super cool.
Yeah, no, and here you have limited evidence, right? You have a footprint that they're saying belonged to a Sasquatch, kind of crusted or dried up into, I guess, what was mud during a storm. And then you have this mangled backpack. Like, how does somebody just go out and mangle a backpack?
I don't know, but I was going to tell you, Bill, too. They said a New York baseball cap. For you and I as Yankee fans, I hope it was a Met cap.
Well, listen, do you think this Oregonian Sasquatch was taking it out because the guy was a New Yorker? I pity the fool. Come
the
over
guy
here.
could have got a little mouthy with the Sasquatch.
Yeah. Hey, yo, bro, get out of my campground. You hear me? That's right.
You haven't had any voodoo donuts from out there, but you might have been looking for some voodoo donuts. And the guy with the Met hat said, "I don't even know what voodoo donuts are." It's like, wrong answer.
Wrong answer. Yeah, but it is interesting, though. He observes no blood, a mangled backpack frame. I mean, if you lost a backpack or left it somewhere, if anybody else came through, they would just take it. I would think. But how does a backpack frame get mangled?
Yeah, something happened for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like the no blood is not shocking to me because I told you the account of when we were up hiking years ago in Priest Lake in northern Idaho, and we saw what basically looked like a deer that exploded.
Yeah.
I mean, I figured it ran into a grizzly, and the grizzly tore it to shreds.
Right.
But I mean, basically, it looked like the fur had exploded all over the trail.
That is really bizarre.
But there was no blood. Bones, skin, and lots of fur.
That is the craziest thing.
Yeah, I never saw anything like it. I mean, all I knew was, okay, we got to turn around.
And while you're mentioning that again, I'd like to invite any of our hunters out there listening. If you have an explanation for what my brother encountered with this deer appearing like it had exploded, chime in with us, contact us, and let us know or educate us if you know anything in the wild that would do such a thing to such an animal. I'd be real interested in hearing what your take is on that.
Yeah, that's great.
I tell you, Kev, I get an education from some of these hunters and field and game people that I talk to. They just know stuff like you or I know about things that we're engaged in, right?
Oh, hey, and maybe there's a logical explanation. But when we saw it, the only thing logical was to get the heck out of there.
Yeah, exactly. That's where logic prevailed, turn around.
We gotta
go. We got to go now. Oh, my goodness. Wow, that is crazy. Yeah, so that's my account today. I thought that was really interesting. And more grist for the mill in the land of Bigfoot.
No doubt.
Wow. So what do you got today,
stuff.
bro? What do you got cooking in the land of listener mail?
Yeah, we got some good email coming in. So first off is from Bruce in Australia.
Wow.
I got to confess, having two kids that grew up in the time of the Disney movies like Finding Nemo, when I hear Bruce in Australia, all I can think of is that great white named Bruce that said, "Fish are friends."
Now, this guy's name wouldn't happen to be Bulldog Brucey, would it?
Yeah, he doesn't mention anything about Bulldog.
I still can't get over that other guy named Bulldog.
I know.
That's funny. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, so Bruce down in Oz says, "Good day, mates, and a very Merry Christmas to the two of you. And Merry Christmas to you too, Bruce. I am a bit of a world traveler myself, and I have done quite a bit of hiking, as you have, Kevin. We came across some mighty large footprints in Vietnam, which none of the locals could identify. These were big feet, like those of a human, only the toes were somewhat splayed. There were 7 that were very well formed, and some other heel and toe impressions. Keep up the good work. Bruce."
Wow. So this guy is from Australia, and he's telling us about, obviously, something that happened to him when he was in Vietnam, of all places.
Yeah, well, these Aussies, my experience in business, as you know, Bill, I've been down there a lot on business. These Aussies, when they leave Australia, they go everywhere, and they're really an adventurous type generally. And some of my friends from Australia, they do spend a good amount of time in Southeast Asia.
Really?
Including Vietnam.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, of course, Australia is basically in the middle of nowhere. So if you got to get on a plane, you're heading north, you're going to be in Singapore, Thailand, Hong Kong, Vietnam, etc.
Okay.
So that's where they're going on vacation and hiking around.
So what do you think? It's like somebody here in Florida going north to Canada?
I guess. I mean, it's quite different because it's, this huge island. Of course, it's a continent, but, if they're able to travel, if they're able to, and have the resources to get on a plane, they spend a lot of time up there in Southeast Asia if they're not coming to the States or back to Europe as well.
Wow. So, and he says, I guess he was hiking up there or doing something.
Exactly. Yeah, he said quite a bit of hiking, so I guess he's talking about hiking.
Yeah.
So he's somewhere in the jungle up there and came across these large footprints. Now, I haven't, read about anything in Vietnam, but I certainly haven't researched anything going on in Vietnam, so I'll put it on the list.
Yeah.
When I first saw Bruce from Australia, I was kind of hoping that he was going to run into a Yowie.
Yeah, good old Yowie Kazowie. But yeah, that's very interesting. And here we go again. Another person emailing in with another sighting of something strange. We really appreciate it, and we encourage everybody, if you've seen something, say something. And that's exactly what we have here with Bruce from Oz. Now, Kev, where did that ever come from, Oz? Is that like just a cute thing they derived in Australia?
I think because they abbreviated AUS, but they do write it as Oz, as OZ.
Okay.
But, it's a great place. As I've told you, it's one of my favorite places in the world. And Sydney, Australia, I could actually see living there with the family, other than the fact that it's so far away from everything else. But it's so beautiful. The people are fantastic. And as an American, you can be super comfortable in Australia. Although you're literally on the other side of the world and in the southern hemisphere, you feel quite at home when you're there. The people are fantastic.
Yeah, really nice. Yeah, the folks that I've met from Australia were just very nice.
Yeah,
and I find that with a lot of people from other places. If you think you got some prejudice against somebody and then you meet them and you're like, wow, what was that all about? For so many years, I was holding on to this or that, or I thought this and that about them. And you find out they're like incredible people,
Yeah. No, especially, if I get on the soapbox for a minute, Americans generally don't travel that much. And therefore they have like these bias towards other folks that are really not found on anything,
Yeah.
Incredible. They never met anybody from there, so how do you know? So
Yeah.
But we're going to go from Australia. It's interesting. So Bruce was in Australia, but talking about something he saw in Vietnam, and just by sheer coincidence of the order of how this email came in, we're going to go to Quinn in Cambodia. So right next door to Vietnam. And Quinn writes in from Cambodia, great show, fellas, and very entertaining indeed. I've been doing, holy cow, he says, I've been doing landmine removal in these parts for almost 30 years, working in jungle regions where if you enter, there's a good chance you will die.
Oh, smokes.
So I got to pause there for a minute. So, if you're having a tough day at work and you're listening to our podcast, first off, thanks for listening. But if you're having a tough day at work and you want to think about a guy that's roaming around in the jungle of Cambodia doing landmine removal, holy cow. That's a tough gig.
I love going to work. You take it easy out there, Quinn.
No kidding. Be careful, Quinn. Take it slow.
Oh, my God.
So back to Quinn's letter. He says, the locals, with the exception of those who didn't heed the warnings, do not enter into these areas, which are quite extensive. In 1997, one of my support team was told of an explosion being heard, with nobody being heard screaming or emerging missing a limb. We were dispatched to carefully go and look for the victim, be it man or beast. It took us 8 hours to carefully make our way into the area, where we found a small ape man blown to pieces.
Holy smokes.
From what was left, it was about 4 feet tall, hair covered, not fur, and very sturdily built. I believe now that this was a young Bigfoot. There are estimated to be tens of millions of mines in this area yet to be found, and apparently this youngster found one. Haven't seen anything else since. Regards, Quinn.
Holy mackerel.
Wow, that's one of the wildest emails we've received.
Holy smokes.
Wow.
30 years landmine removal, and he's still alive.
Well, I mean, Quinn, take it easy, or maybe it's time for retirement. Wow, man. And by the way, thank God you're doing this work. I mean, you're saving, so many folks. What an awful thing. Where in wartime we as people just spread these things everywhere, which seems like a good idea during the war, but then when the war is over, we're blowing everybody and everything up with these mines.
Yeah, I mean, these things aren't mapped out. I mean, it's literally you're going to stumble on one and you're going to miss your limb or die altogether,
Exactly.
Oh, my God. And he finds this little ape man, 4 feet tall, blown apart. That's kind of really remarkable. I mean, I've never heard of such a thing.
No, I haven't heard of any accounts like that, but, kind of makes sense in this rainforest there in Cambodia. Jeez.
Well, look, I mean, really, anything could step on a mine, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you could have a freaking, I would imagine a snake could slither over some mines and set it off and get blown to kingdom come,
Yeah, one of the larger snakes.
Yeah, large one. Thank God it got blown up.
Exactly. My feeling about snakes is, hey.
A dead snake is a good snake.
Sorry, here comes the snake lover email.
Yeah. Well, though, I wouldn't mind having a nice pair of snakeskin boots.
Oh, no, now we're getting double snake lover mail.
Yeah, double snake level
We'll
boot.
put it with the witch mail.
Wow, that is incredible. And something that just struck me when you started to read, that name Quinn, isn't Quinn kind of an Aussie name?
I don't know. Huh. Could be. I've run into people from Vietnam named Quinn.
I guess so. It's when I knew a Quinn, of course, that used to have that auto repair shop here in Ronkonkoma. So I can't really say that. I did know Quinn. He definitely was an Australian. But when you said Quinn, I was just thinking about the fella in Australia and Vietnam. And then you said Quinn, and I was like, is this another Aussie in an adjoining country? Landmine removal?
I thought you were thinking of Captain Quinn from Jaws.
Oh, that's another one. Yeah. Oh, he was that show. That movie just altered society. Oh, my God. Remember seeing that guy's face through the porthole window? Was it a porthole? Oh,
it's awesome. It's
that
awesome
was
movie.
awesome. Wow, great story, Quinn. Thank you for chiming in with us.
All right. We're coming back to North America and the good old United States, to a place that you and I know, Bill. This comes in from Betty in New Hampshire.
Oh. Yeah.
Awesome. So
Yep.
Betty writes, I have read all of your books, and they are a real eye-opener, especially to myself, having seen a Sasquatch.
Oh.
I was on the highway one evening going through an area near Loon Mountain.
Oh.
Yeah, we've been to Loon Mountain, Bill.
Yeah, I remember taking a gondola ride up to the top of that place and looking down over the lake and whatnot. It's just beautiful. And again, though, we talk about the little touristy areas around the States. When you got over there by that area of Loon Mountain or anywhere over there, you could just park your car and just go up in the woods, and you're in the middle of nowhere.
Oh, I mean, I've seen moose up there.
Yeah, there's like nothing out there but wilderness.
Yeah, we've done a ton of hiking in recent years, too, up around in the White Mountains there where Loon is. And so she says she's going along the highway. I would bet she's on the Kankamankas Highway there near Loon Mountain.
Uh-huh.
But she doesn't mention it. We've done a lot of hikes off of the Kankamankas.
Uh-huh.
But she says, when I saw a creature running off my side of the road and into the forest, it had obviously, to me, crossed the entire road, with myself having caught the last 30 feet of it doing so. More than likely 8 or 9 feet tall and 3 or 4 feet wide. It took perhaps 3 strides to cover the 30 feet of the road and was gone.
Wow.
Wow. She says, I slowed the car and saw nothing of it in the woods. Of course, I wasn't going to stop and have a look. Amazing. Great show, guys. Thank you, Betty.
Wow. How many times do you think that happens, Kev, where somebody catches a glance of one and says, what was that?
Yeah, I think it's got to happen a lot.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for it to happen to me, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I mean, did I just see that? You just plug yourself into the scenario, and it's just like, what was that? You know, especially if you're alone.
Absolutely.
You know, there's got to be a moment where a lot of people would just second guess what I saw, and it brings me back to that cop in Whitehall, New York. You know, standing in front of me was something that said not to be.
Right.
And there it is.
Again, looking at something right in front of you in his case and thinking, okay, I'm looking right at something that I was told my whole life did not exist.
Yeah. Yeah, very bizarre. And, you know, here we have, again, a fleeting glimpse, but a glimpse nonetheless. I mean, she's talking about something that was covering ground quickly because it moved, what she said was 30 feet in 3 steps, and it was gone.
Oh, yeah.
So it must have been like boom, 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 gone, over.
No, and she says it's 8 or 9 feet tall, so this is a behemoth, and 3 or 4 feet wide.
Yeah, that's a big bugger, boy.
Big bugger is right.
Holy smoke. So, hey, you know, here we go. You know, you want people who've seen something? Here's a lady that saw something. What do you think of her account? Yeah, you know, what do you just say? I'm sorry, you're wrong. Quinn's wrong. Bruce is wrong. Bill is wrong. You know, okay, you can just keep going along that trail if you want, but I tend to go in a different direction.
Yeah, pretty cool accounts this week. Pretty cool letters, I should say. They happen to be accounts, you know, that come in this particular week from Bruce in Australia, Quinn in Cambodia, and Betty in New Hampshire. So, you know, others out there. Again, we gave you a couple of shout outs in the podcast this week of, you know, if you've seen some of these things that we talked about, say something. You know, if you've seen something, say something. Come to the website. Check out some of the other footage we have there and leave us a note. Let us know if you like it. Let us know if you've seen something like this, you know, even like an exploded deer that I described up in Priest Lake in northern Idaho. And then, of course, as you're listening, drop us a review. Give us 5 stars from your favorite podcast player, and we'd really appreciate that.
Yeah, that's excellent. Really excellent stuff, Kev. You know, and that's one of the joys of having the format that we have here on Bigfoot Terror in the Woods. It's like a real cornucopia of information, you know, both coming and going from listeners, and then what you're digging up, and then what I'm bringing to the table. I really hope that the listeners are enjoying it as much as we are bringing it out, putting it out there for you. So is that it for the
good stuff. You know, we should tease our audience a little, Bill, right? I think our next podcast is going to be our first Christmas special.
Yeah, and folks, I'm telling you in advance, do not miss 5 seconds of the Christmas podcast. I'm just throwing it out there. You can clip us anywhere you want, but I'm recommending to the bitter end.
Or there may be some coal in your stocking.
Yeah. Well, I don't put coal in the stocking. I'm going to grab one of Quinn's landmines. So when you reach your crummy midden there, bang!
Oh no! Now we're getting more email, Bill.
Sorry, it wasn't a candy cane.
Just kidding. I assure you, he's not putting landmines in stockings. Nor should anybody else do.
Can you imagine?
No. Come on, remember the scouts listening to this, Bill.
That's right. You're right. I'm sorry, people. Anyways, until we meet again, remember this. Always carry more gun than you think you're going to need. Sleep tight.